Alright, welcome to another episode of Film Illiterates. Today we're going to be talking about the classic 1984 cult film, Repo Man.
Suppose you're thinking about a plate of shrimp. Suddenly somebody will say like plate or shrimp or plate of shrimp out of the blue, no explanation. No point in looking for one either. It's all part of a cosmic unconsciousness.
You eat a lot of acid, Miller, back in the hippie days?
Emilio Estevez plays a young punk who quits his day job as a grocery clerk and becomes a car repossession man. Harry Dean Stanton plays his down-to-earth mentor as they go on adventures involving repo rivals, UFOs, and glowing nuclear cars. And speed.
Yeah, and speed, can't forget that.
And drinking.
And drink.
And driving.
And
That's actually pretty much the majority of the film. They're just driving around,
Let's go get a drink.
Let's go get a drink.
And then they go drive somewhere.
So how much do I get paid? 25 bucks a car?
Paid? You don't get paid.
And they go get another drink.
Come on, let's go get a drink.
Throughout the movie, they go to like different grocery stores, and you see them. Everyone has like a can of beer in their hands.
Yeah.
But it's just generic beer. Like it's like a can that just says beer on it.
And like every other thing else in that movie, whether it's like whether it's soda, whether it's liquor, whether it's, you know, some cereal, it's always that same sort of like style. In the first opening scene, it's this cop that pulls over some like a guy in a car on the highway out in the middle of nowhere.
What you got in the trunk?
Oh, you don't want to look in there.
Immediately from that, it just jumps right to Emilio Estevez working in his terrible grocery store job.
Fuck you.
And then in that same scene, getting fired.
Come on.
Later on, that car that the creepy dude was driving that got pulled over, that comes back into play because some government agency or something is looking for it, and they put out pretty much a bounty on it, $20,000 to find this car. And so they, Harry Dean Stanton, Emilio Estevez, they go looking for that car. And to answer your question of what happened in the third act, essentially they find the car, and it's kind of like a mad dash to get the car before the government agency gets the car. And they all find the car.
Yeah. But it's also funny because in the final act also that's when it really kind of becomes bizarre, and you have like the flying car and the radioactive stuff, and it's kind of like all hell breaks loose. Like up until this point, the movie kind of been meandering along at its own pace, and then all of a sudden, just bam, plot point after plot point after plot point.
Yeah, and it just his turbo and pretty much just takes off from there. Stuff keeps constantly happening, and like you said, before honestly, the first and second act, minus obviously the opening scene with the guy getting melted, it's almost like you could almost call it like a coming to age story for like Emilio Estevez, because he's like, he seems like he's in a bad crowd. Parents don't really care for him too much, and he finds Harry Dean Stanton, who gives him a job, starts teaching him things, and it's like, all right, looks like this is the kind of movie that's going to be. And then third act hits, and it's just like that's a total shift.
It opens up with this rock song made by Iggy Pop.
Yeah.
And then just kind of like throughout the movie, it has a soundtrack that kind of plays throughout the movie. And they use a lot of electronic music, a lot of guitars and that kind of stuff. But then they throw in a lot of these songs in there, like the Pablo Picasso song.
Now the girl will turn the color of an avocado.
And it's, for the most part, when they throw in songs like that, which is really what the movie's known for, it's not as part of the soundtrack, but it's part of the actual background. Like a character will be listening to it in his car, and it'll lead into a scene and get you into the mood of the scene, and then it'll kind of fade out as the scene goes on. And that happens multiple times in the movie.
Yeah, it definitely plays to more as just the background of the movie, and helps what do I want to say? It's more of the setting rather than an actual soundtrack or a soundtrack to the movie. And two, like, since the movie was made in 1984, that's coming off like right when punk really kind of started, like the late 70s with like the Sex Pistols with Iggy Pop. And so that's really just it fits really just the scene then, because punk was popular around that time. So it's not, I feel like it's almost not like that they chose the music for that movie just because they like that, but because it's really, that's what the music was. That's popular music back then. Even
more importantly, I think you can even dive into the soundtrack kind of from a thematic standpoint, because the film is about kind of the punk life, I guess.
Yeah.
In a way, because you have Emilio Estevez. He has some friends. Almost all the young people you see in this movie wear like leather, large earrings,
punks,
mohawks, and that kind of stuff. And they go around and they do crimes. They buy sushi, or they go get sushi and don't pay for it.
They go get sushi and don't pay for it. Yeah.
Let's go get sushi and not pay.
But then and you feel like that's the kind of music that they would listen to is part of the soundtrack, and the whole film is just saturated in these kids. But then on the other hand, you have Emilio Estevez, who is really the most cleaned up character in this movie. All his friends go off, they're robbing grocery stores the whole time, and they kind of live in the loose lifestyle. But then he really is the one that kind of buckles down and gets a job, and he's wearing suits, and it's kind of a crazy lifestyle that he's living, but it's more anchored down than his friends are. And part of that is because he's working with Harry Dean Stanton, who is a total contrast to them, because he's kind of an older guy. He's almost a dinosaur compared to these kids. But you feel like he lived the kind of life they did when he was younger. Because he is doing these drugs and drinking and all that kind of stuff, but he has a code of ethics, and as the film goes on, it's really interesting just kind of seeing the soundtrack with all these kids and these punks contrasted against him and Emilio Estevez kind of in their suits driving around the cars, and you kind of think, is this where he came from? Is this why he brought Emilio Estevez on with him? What does it say about where he's going? What does it say about where Emilio Estevez is going? So it's really interesting.
I almost feel like it's not entirely made for people of younger people growing up, and people Emilio Estevez's age, because it's sort of obviously it follows Emilio Estevez, who is their age, but overall I don't think a lot of what's presented would really fit well with maybe what they want at that time. But yeah, I could say it's probably made for people a little bit older, people who can look back at their own lives and see their own past lives relating to Emilio Estevez in that film.
That's interesting, because it could be playing to both audiences back then, and in the early '80s, and maybe that's the point of the movie, is that it's trying it's trying to reel in the kids with the cool music and the mohawks and that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it's reeling in the older crowd who kind of want to see relive their glory days and see what the kids are into then. But then that way it would work as a truly modern piece for the '80s. But then when you bring it in today, fast forward like 30, 40 years, something like that, and then all of a sudden, it becomes really a slice of the '80s, and for people who didn't live those days, they can look back and see what people were into.
Yeah, that's what back in the '80s, that's what it was like.
With flying nuclear cars.
With flying nuclear cars, you can't forget that.
It is very much a cult movie.
Yeah.
Some people may watch it and get something out of it, like we did. Yeah. Most people will probably watch the movie and say, "What the hell is going on?" It's just kind of bizarre. It has you really have to have a kind of a non sequitur sense of humor to really enjoy the movie, which I do. I enjoyed it, so it might take a few. Also, watch if you're gonna watch it more than once. You need to watch it a couple times to really. I mean, even for myself, I'm getting more things out of it every time I watch it. In fact, this time there's even background audio and some songs in the background I hadn't noticed before, and I've seen the movie probably 2 or 3 times.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely say it's a great cult film. For me, I really liked it because I enjoyed the music in it. I enjoyed kind of the setting of it. So I liked a lot of that. For me, I wasn't really big into the whole radioactive cars thing. That was just kind of as weird and like as almost interesting as it was to watch and just follow along with, for me that kind of it took a little bit out of the movie. I would have liked to see maybe less of that, or
have it be more of a Richard Linklater movie, more grounded, down to earth.
I guess so. I mean, like still like still that same sort of setting and everything, just minus the radioactive car and government agency. And it'd be kind of cool to see like a kind of growing up story for Emilio Estevez. But I mean, even with the car and the agency, still really it's just a really an entertaining movie to watch because you're constantly just wondering what's going to happen next. I honestly think we said the kind of the same thing for Following Down when we reviewed that last. You're just kind of wanting to know what happens. You're invested not so much in the characters, but you're invested in the story and just what happens next.
Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
Alrighty, that's all we got.
Mm-hmm.